Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Cook, Quorum, Court, Crowder, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Garcia, Gardner,
Excused.
Guzman, Hill, Holbert, John, Jones, Kagan, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lumberg, Marble, Martinez-Huminick, Merrifield, Merrifield,
Absent.
Moreno, Neville, Priola, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Tate, Todd, Williams, Zinzinger, Mr. President.
Here. 33 present, 1 absent, 1 excused. We have a quorum. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate suspend Senate Rule 1B so that a guest may lead the pledge.
Please add Senator Merrifield to the roll. The motion is to suspend Senate Rule 1B so that a guest can come and lead us in the pledge. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Today we have with us Mr. Cole Thomas Rand. He is from Greeley. He's in the 6th grade from Prairie Heights Middle School, and he is coming to lead us in the pledge today. Sir.
Hi. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Approval of the journal. Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the journal of April 24th be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. Committee reports.
April 24, 2018, Committee on Finance, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 259, be amended as follows as submitted before the Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. April 24, 2018, Committee on Finance, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following. House Bill 1381, be referred to Committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 24, 2018, Committee on Local Government, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following. House Bill 1360, be amended as follows as submitted before the Committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 24, 2018, Committee on Transportation, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 181 be postponed indefinitely. April 24, 2018, Committee on Transportation, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 78 be postponed indefinitely. April 24, 2018, Committee on Transportation, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 268 be referred to the Committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar.
Senate Services.
Correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 219. Correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 230, 234, 236, 238, 239, 242. Correctly revised, House Bill 1252, 1295, and 1355. Correctly revised, House Bill 1181, 1187, and 1277.
We will be in a brief recess. Senate will come back to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions.
Motion is to proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. And we will proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1012?
House Joint Resolution 1012 by Representatives Benavidez, Michelson, Janae, and Senators Crowder and Fields concerning the Medicaid eligibility of individuals being held in a correctional facility but who have not been convicted of a crime.
Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President. I move HJR 18-1012 and ask that it not be read at length.
Granted. Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a somewhat simple but very important resolution that will go to our federal congressional representatives. Basically, what we're trying to do is extend Medicaid to those who are incarcerated. All too often, people that are incarcerated lose their Medicaid ability to pay, and it falls upon the counties, and it's putting our counties in extreme financial jeopardy. So with that, Mr. President, that's about as far as it goes, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd like to just comment on this joint resolution because it came out of our interim committee when we were addressing the overcrowding of jails and the funding of how we fund our county jails. And what was brought to our attention is that if an inmate or a detainee is in jail and they become ill, they're not eligible for Medicaid. And so what happens is 100% of those fees are paid for by county jails. We don't think that should be the case because when they go into correctional facilities, those fees are paid, and it's just putting our county jails in a financial burden. So members, please vote yes on this joint amendment, a joint resolution 18-1012. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1012. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Joint Resolution 1012 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Crowder.
Mr. President, could I get the morning roll call added to this as consent? As co-sponsors.
If there is no objection, the morning roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over HJR 1013 to follow HJR 1019.
Motion is to lay over House Joint Resolution 1013 to follow House Joint Resolution 1019. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and that will lay over. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1019?
House Joint Resolution 1019 by Representatives Wisdom Bridges and Senators Tate and Moreno concerning the designation of a portion of Arapahoe Road from Interstate 25 to the Parker Road in Arapahoe County as the Siddharpat Amrinian Memorial Highway.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Joint Resolution 1019 and ask that it be read in parts.
Mr. Carpenter.
House Joint Resolution 1019 by Representatives Wisdom Bridges and Senators Tate and Moreno concerning the designation of a portion of Arapahoe Road from Interstate 25 to Parker Road in Arapahoe County as the Siddharpat Armenian Memorial Highway. Whereas this year marks the 103rd anniversary for the first genocide of the 20th century, the Armenian Genocide, when 1.5 million men, women, and children of Armenian descent were victims of a brutal genocide perpetrated by the Turkish Ottoman Empire from 1915 to 1923. And whereas the establishment of the Republic of Armenia through the Battle of Siddharpat enabled the congressionally sanctioned Near East Relief, which housed a regional headquarters in Denver to optimize its nationwide fundraising that ultimately saved 132,000 Armenian genocide orphans. And that a portion of Arapahoe Road from Interstate 25 to Parker Road in Arapahoe County be named the Siddharpat Armenian Memorial Highway in honor of Armenian genocide survivors' valiant contributions in creating the independent Republic of Armenia 100 years ago.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, here in this chamber, for several years, we've recognized April 24th in conjunction with the Armenian genocide about 100 years ago. And today we're honoring a road in my district to that remembrance and urge your affirmation and yes vote on the resolution. Thank you.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, for many years, the Colorado legislature has recognized the atrocities of the Armenian genocide. And this year, we worked with the Armenian community to recognize it in a different way. Not only do we have a catch car on the Capitol Armenian Memorial grounds, but now, if this resolution is passed, the CDOT can accept gifts, grants, and donations to actually mark a section of one of our highways as the Siddharpat American Memorial Highway. And so it's another way to affirm our commitment to the Armenian community and to recognize the genocide that happened and to remember the victims of that genocide.
Is there any further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1019. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Joint Resolution 1019 is adopted. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the morning roll call be listed as co-sponsors without objection.
Without objection, the roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move that we lay over consideration, the balance of consideration of resolutions calendar to Thursday, April 26th.
Motion is to lay over the balance of the consideration of resolutions calendar until Thursday, April 26th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it, and that will lay over. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request a senatorial 5.
We'll be in a brief recess. Senate will come back to order. Please add Senator Gardner to the roll. Third reading of bills. Final passage. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the Senate Bill 226?
Senate Bill 226 by Senators Lundberg and Cook and Representative Willett concerning a prohibition on Colorado's involvement in the state-level climate collaboration that attempts to reduce carbon dioxide emissions.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 226 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, members, we can't any longer ignore the strange and increasingly severe weather we have in Colorado. And we have a moral obligation to address climate change for our grandchildren, which means preparing for and tackling climate change right now.
Senator Jones, can I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yes, sir.
Colleagues, we're on third reading. Please continue.
In the 12 warmest years in recorded history have been in the last 15 years. Those higher temperatures lead to more asthma and respiratory problems and fires. And this is urgent. This bill is not causing a problem with treaties. What it is it's saying that we shouldn't, as a state, tackle climate change. And we have a moral obligation to do that. Secondly, oil and gas companies have spent millions and millions of dollars to rig the system against climate change and to spread theories that are not true. They've attacked renewable energy standards. They funded million-dollar campaigns through the George C. Marshall Institute to create doubt. And they've used some of the same scientists that did the same thing with tobacco, saying that it did not cause cancer. Investing in clean energy means investing in our own communities and taking charge of our own energy. Instead of subsidizing big oil, we invest in wind turbines on farms, solar on roofs, schools that use less energy, creating local jobs, stronger communities, and a more stable climate. Colorado benefits from a lot of clean energy jobs. One study found 40,000 wind and solar jobs and 80,000 energy conservation jobs in Colorado. It's a big part of our economy and growing. And what we should be doing here is working on a nonpartisan way forward. But what this bill says is that we shouldn't be a leader in this, even though it's our Colorado brand to have clean energy and a clean environment. So we owe it to our children and have a moral obligation to them to act, to push back on people who create doubt that is not real. And finally, we need to take charge of our own energy and use this to our advantage. Last summer at the National Conference of State Legislatures, it was interesting to me. The conversation in the energy forums was, we are going to be the first state to do this because we are going to outcompete you because now clean energy is cheaper and we want these jobs and we're going to be there first. Colorado should lead the way on this. I ask for your no vote on this. The governor acted in a positive way. We should support that and not detract from that. So I ask again for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Senate Bill 226. As we're talking about climate change, as we're talking about making sure that our economy, that our air, our water is as clean as possible here in Colorado, how to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, how to make sure that the state of Colorado is able to talk to other states, people in other states, people in other parts of the world that might be able to help us, and we can help them to take care of this problem that's affecting the entire world. It certainly is impacting Colorado, but it's also impacting the entire world. And passing this bill basically says that we're going to just not talk to people. We're not going to collaborate with people. We're not going to have those discussions on how we can reverse this most important threat to the future of our state and the future of our kids here in Colorado. Your constituents do not want this bill to pass. 81% of Coloradans want the state to reduce carbon emissions by 35% by 2030. 89% of Coloradans think that the state and public utilities should work together to achieve the most significant reductions in carbon emissions that can be accomplished while providing reliable and affordable energy. 89% of the people of our state. 83% of Coloradans agree we should be taking steps now to take control of Colorado's energy future instead of waiting for the federal government or anyone else. So your constituents do not want this bill to pass. The other day, I read a little bit about some studies from Exxon and Shell, not exactly known as renewable energy companies, at least not when these studies were done back in the 80s, where their scientists that were hired by these oil companies found that the current outlook suggests potentially serious climate problems are not likely to occur until the late 21st century or perhaps beyond at projected energy demand rates. This is what Exxon-funded scientists were reporting November 12, 1982. The Shell scientists, Shell-funded scientists. And this wasn't reported until this year, that the Shell scientists were saying the mathematical models of Earth's climate indicate that if this warming occurs, then it could create significant changes in sea level, ocean currents, precipitation patterns, regional temperature, and weather. These changes could be larger than any that have occurred over the last 12,000 years. Such relatively fast and dramatic changes would impact on the human environment, future living standards, and food supplies, and could have major societal, economic, and political consequences. Remember, just a few moments ago, I said this is the biggest threat facing the environment, facing the economy here in Colorado. This is what oil company scientists were saying back in the early 80s. And yes, I consider this a threat. I consider this a threat not just to our economy and to our environment, but to our national security. And that's just not the senator from Senate District 22 coming up with this. The Department of Defense released a report on security implications of climate change. The report finds that climate change is a security risk. Again, not a bunch of, I don't even know what we call this, the big green, the scientists funded by those people out to make sure that we have clean air and water and that our economy is not impacted. But this is the Department of Defense report. Finds that climate change is a security risk. Pentagon's official said because it degrades living conditions, human security, and the ability of governments to meet the basic needs of their populations. Exactly what the oil companies funded scientists were saying back in the 80s before their research was covered up. Communities and states that are already fragile and have limited resources are significantly more vulnerable to disruption and far less likely to respond effectively and be resilient to new challenges, they added. Now, I don't think anyone in Colorado would say that we're a community or a state that are fragile, not in our spirit, not in our backbone, not in the people that serve in this chamber. We believe that Colorado is a tough state. But those of us that live here for the amenities of going up to the mountains, if you've ever hiked a 14er or just been above timberline, which I'm sure everyone in this chamber has done at some point, you know that the environment above timberline is especially fragile. Yes, it can withstand those incredible winters above 11, 12,000 feet. And those really short grasses and flowers that bloom for only a couple of months each year during the summer. And we know that they're fragile because you learn about it and they talk about that sometimes one footstep can kill these plants, and that they take 20 or 30 years, just little tiny 3 or 4 inch tall flowers and grass could take 30 or 40 years to regrow just with one footstep. But yet they can also withstand incredible winters. So it's like Colorado, it's like our state in general, that we can be very fragile and we can be very tough at the same time. But these are the places that the Department of Defense, the oil companies, and their research themselves have said are most at risk. And not at risk that, oh, we might lose a species of flower or a species of grass above timberline. Security risk. Pentagon officials call this a national security risk because of the displacement of people from their homes, from their economies. And we've already seen what happens when people around the globe are displaced, either through environmental reasons or economic reasons. And it becomes a national security risk to the people here in Colorado. So I rise not in support of whoever the governor will be next year. I'm sure she'll do a great job. I don't rise in support of making sure that the governor can or cannot speak to other states and other places. I speak in support of our environment. I speak in support of our national security. I speak in support of our economy, in that we should all vote no on Senate Bill 226. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, those were all interesting observations, but they certainly weren't about Senate Bill 226. And I'd like to reel us back to that, but not before I assure everybody that I would love to have that conversation, in-depth, detailed conversation on whether or not the anthropogenic carbon dioxide is the catastrophic end of life as we know it here on this planet. I've been following this, as I said during second reading, I counted it back since a biology class in high school 50 years ago. I've been very well aware of the green movement, if you will. And indeed, my own home is run by wind and solar, has been for over 20 years. I am not I run my own REA, you might say. That's what I joke around with the folks there, because We produce our own power. We do it in a renewable fashion. I love renewables. I think they're a great idea. I am not bought out by the oil and gas industry, which I heard some implication of. As a matter of fact, in all of the studies, and I became most focused on this whole debate back in '98, when it seemed to have erupted on the international scene, much more in Europe than in this country initially, but if you followed it carefully, and I did, it was this sea change of attitude among intelligentsia, but that's not necessarily a compliment to the accuracy of the facts. But this bill is not about that. And I will bring us back to a statement I made very early in the second reading debate, that long before Colorado and Colorado's governor jumped into this, it was the governor of California, Jerry Brown, who decided that he was going to circumvent the national government's policy on the Paris Agreement and do it anyway in California. And my immediate thought was, who made him president of California? And then, lo and behold, Governor Hickenlooper does the same thing. And that's why Senate Bill 226 is here, because it's to reel him back and say, you are not president of Colorado. You are governor. And Colorado's governor is limited to his constitutional responsibilities and duties, as well as the state of Colorado is limited to our responsibilities and duties within the national structure. And whereas we should be very diligent in hanging on to those authorities that we are granted and most specifically and explicitly delegated in the 10th Amendment of our Bill of Rights, in Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, it very clearly states that states are prohibited from international agreements of this sort. And that's why the Paris Accord was, in fact, established at the national level, because that's where it belongs. And that's what Senate Bill 226 is all about. Now, you can come down to the mic here and go on and on and on the subject of global warming and how you're convinced that that's just the absolute, everybody is convinced of it. Even though you want to have that debate, let's do it in the proper forum. But debate on Senate Bill 226 is not it, because Senate Bill 226 is telling the governor of the state of Colorado, back off, you're not president of Colorado, and Colorado is not an independent nation. No. Colorado is a state among 49 other states that has a lot of authority and a lot of responsibility, but not when it comes to treaties or alliances of this sort. Please support Senate Bill 226 on the merits of the bill, and let the other discussions that have very little relevance to the actual subject matter fall by the wayside in this debate. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd appreciate your kind attention.
Senator Koufalos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I rise in opposition, respectful opposition to Senate Bill 226. I've heard it said a few times that this bill is focusing on the authority of the governor, and I understand that piece, but the authority of the governor does not extend to getting involved in international agreements such as the Paris Climate Accord. My understanding of this bill is that we are not trying to intervene in international matters. This executive order by the governor is allowing the state of Colorado to participate with other states around the country, the nation, to come together and figure out what we're going to do in terms of climate change. The science is very firm. We can certainly have a robust discussion about that, but the science is very firm that human activity, greenhouse gas emissions are primary contributors to global climate change, and this is contributing to the extreme weather that we are having in the state of Colorado and in states that are along the oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. And so this bill, in my view, is about allowing the state of Colorado to participate with other states in this climate change alliance. It is not about going over to Paris and getting involved in the, directly involved in the Paris Climate Accord. I rise in opposition because I would prefer to err on the side of caution on behalf of future generations. Thank you.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a small clarification here. The United States Climate Alliance, it is true, is an alliance of states. But if you go to their website and you look at their purpose, it is to implement the Paris Agreement. It is to circumvent the national government in matters of international agreement. Senate Bill 226 is very clear and very accurate and very constitutional, and it should be adopted by this body. Thank you.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this isn't a treaty or an agreement in the formal sense of the word. It's some nice statements. There's no requirements of the state, really. I mean, I was disappointed when I saw it, quite frankly. Here are the three principles. States are continuing to lead on climate change. Alliance states recognize that climate change presents a serious threat to the environment and our residents, communities, and economy. Second one, state-level climate action is benefiting our economies and strengthening our communities. Alliance members are growing our clean energy economies and creating new jobs. There's a bad idea. While reducing air pollution, improving public health, and building more resilient communities. And the third piece is states are showing a nation and a world that ambitious climate action is achievable. Despite the U.S. federal government's decision to withdraw from the Paris Agreement, Alliance members are committed to supporting the international agreement and are pursuing aggressive climate action to make progress towards the goals. And while they say that, there's no way to enforce that. So we're not entering into a treaty or an alliance in that way. But I do know that Coloradans are noticing even more strange and unusual weather. I mean, in 2012, we had a record wildfire in Black Forest, 550 plus houses burned up. We had a record flood in northern Colorado. And we had Dust Bowl conditions in southeast Colorado, all in the same year. They noticed that 1 in 14 trees in Colorado are dead, in part because of a warmer climate. They see it, and they know we have a moral obligation to our children to address that. They're also learning that a lot of the doubt created about climate change and global warming has been sponsored by oil and gas companies who try to rig the system to make people doubt that this is occurring when it is. 97.5% of the scientists agree. Most of the other 2.5% don't have an opinion, strong opinion one way or the other, and there are very few that don't agree that this is going on. And they employ some of the same people to create this doubt that they did with tobacco companies and cancer. You see, I think investing in clean energy is a real opportunity for us. It's a real opportunity for our schools. They can save money and put that money in the classroom. It's a real opportunity for our local communities to put wind turbines in to help their property tax base. The Peets School District, 15% of its property tax base comes from wind turbine payments. It's a real opportunity to create good jobs. There are 4,250 jobs on the Eastern Plains related to wind and solar, and 220 small businesses. This should be a nonpartisan issue because it is so directly impacting our state now and even more so in the future. And there are so many opportunities to clean up our air for health reasons, for economy and jobs reasons. We should be embracing tackling this problem right now as a group. And I ask you to do that by not voting for this and moving forward in a positive direction that really benefits the clean energy brand our state has.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 226. Are there any no votes? Senator Jones, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Fields, Senator Koufalas, Senator Guzman, Leader Garcia, Senator Fenberg, Senator Court, Senator Donovan, Senator Kagan, Senator Moreno, Senator Aguilar, Senator Williams, Senator Todd, Senator Merrifield, Senator Kerr, Senator John. With 18 ayes, 17 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 226 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Scott, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, Senator Gardner, Senator Smallwood, Senator Lambert, Senator Hill. Please add the President. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 219.
Senate Bill 219 by Senator Tate and Representative Kraftharp concerning the rates of motor vehicle dealer charges of motor vehicle manufacturer for work performed by the dealer in accordance with the warranty obligation.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 219 on third reading and final passage. And members, I kindly ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 219. Are there any no votes? Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Marble. With With 32 ayes, 3 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 219 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Koufalas, Senator Kagan, Senator Williams. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Bill 1252?
House Bill 1252 by Representative Robertson Wilson and Senator Priola concerning unlawful sale of academic materials for submission to an institution of higher education.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1252 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1252. Are there any no votes? Senator Hill, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Lambert, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator Smallwood, Senator Lundberg. With 26 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1252 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Leader Garcia, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Moreno, Senator Tate, Senator Martinez-Humenick. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of House Bill 1355?
House Bill 1355 by Representatives Pedersen and Zayas and Senators Gardner and Moreno concerning changes to the accountability system for the elementary and secondary public education system to strengthen the accountability system for the benefit of students.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1355 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1355. Are there any no votes? 35 ayes. Senator Merrifield. With 34 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1355 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Lambert, Senator Tate, Senator Priola, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Bill 1295?
House Bill 1295 by Representatives Salazar, Nescar, and Senator Quorum concerning modifications to the Colorado Food and Drug Act to allow products containing industrial hemp and in connection therewith establishing the products containing industrial hemp are not adulterated or misbranded by virtue of containing industrial hemp.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1295 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1295. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1295 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Baumgardner, Senator Crowder, Senator Marble, Senator Neville, Senator Smallwood, Senator Tate, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Gardner, Senator Hill, Leader Garcia, Senator John, Senator Kerr, Senator Guzman, Senator Todd, Senator Court, Senator Merrifield, Senator Williams, Senator Kafalis, Senator Aguilar, Senator Fields, Senator Fenberg, Senator Lambert, Senator Jones, Senator Kagan. Please add the President. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we move toward general order second reading of bills consent calendar, there has been a request to remove Senate Bill 255 from the consent calendar. So that will be moved to follow House Bill 1152 on the general order's second reading of bills calendar.
Senate Bill 255 will be moved off the consent calendar to follow 1152 on the general order second reading of bills calendar. Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order second reading of bills calendar.
The motion is for the Senate to resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order second reading of bills calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order second reading of bills calendar. Senator Quorum will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. The court rulers are relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to bills on the second reading general? Will the clerk please read the bills?
House Bill 1152 by Representative Lawrence Senator Cook concerning making certain records of the State Judicial Department relating to sexual harassment investigations subject to Colorado Open Records Act.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1152, and there are no committee reports. The 1152 started off as saying that the Judicial Department would be subject to all CORA records like every other government entity, regardless of who they are. We're subject to CORA, Department of Education, everybody else is subject to CORA, and this would say that the Judicial Department would be too. However, in the House and the committee, they changed it to just say that they're open to CORA for sexual harassment complaints. Only, and this came out of State Affairs 5-0, and it was on the consent calendar. I thought I might have an amendment, but I did not, so I would ask for your aye vote on 1152.
You've heard the motion. Is there any discussion? If not, those all in favor of House Bill 1152 signify by saying aye. 1152 is adopted. Pardon? Okay. Are there any no votes? I was right the first time. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 255?
Senate Bill 255 by Senator Tate and Representative Arden Hooten concerning the use of electronic formats in the issuance of certificates of title for vehicles.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 255.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read the amendment?
Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 285 by Senator Tatum and printable page 3.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002. Members, this was an amendment that I completely forgot to introduce at the committee level. Completely spaced it, so here I am. This amendment provides some additional clarity to one of our agencies who is concerned that this new statute would create a requirement. A lot of discussions around maybe it didn't, but this just provides some clarity for the benefit of folks in the executive branch. Urge an aye vote on the amendment and the bill. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on L002? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L002 is adopted. Senator Tate. Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 255 has been moved and as amended? All those in favor signify. Senator Crowder.
For the sponsor, does that mean that the titles can be electronically moved around so that the person no longer has to go to the county clerk? And if so, how does that work? And I'm curious about payment to the county for that certificate of title. I'm not opposed
Senator
to it, I'm
Tate.
just trying to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleague from Alamosa. To my knowledge, it is not going to remove that requirement. It has to do with title administrations and transactions with regard to insurance companies and total loss situations. So it's not going to relieve some of the more mundane activities we have to engage in. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of Senate Bill 255 as amended, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. Senate Bill 255 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is to rise and report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? The committee will rise and report.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee has met, had a number of bills, and will the clerk please read the titles of the bills?
Mr. President, your committee of the Public's lead reports that in consideration the following task bills being the second reading, there are mixed following recommendations are on. Senate Bill 255 is amended, passed second read order, and gross and placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1152 passed in second read order, revised, and placed on the counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the committee report.
The motion before the body is the adoption of the report to the committee of the whole. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, zero excused. The committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 255 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1152 passed on second reading, and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over consideration of House amendments to Senate bills to Friday, April 27th.
The motion is to lay over consideration of House amendments to Senate bills until Friday, April 27th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that will lay over. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, in consultation with the minority leader, we have agreed to take up a consent calendar. If you look on your Senate calendar for today on page 2 and the top of page 3, you will find general orders, second reading bills, consent calendar for Thursday, April 26. Again, this is tomorrow's second reading bills consent calendar. We are going to move that, or I will move that as a special orders calendar for today so that we can move those bills through a little quicker. Mr. President, I move the Senate take up a special orders calendar at the hour of 10:04 a.m. to include House Bills 1348, 1307, 1344, 1280, 1174, 1372, 1371, 1374, along with the Finance Committee report, Senate Bill 248 and the Finance Committee report, and Senate Bill 247 along with its Finance Committee report.
The motion is that the Senate take up the bills listed by the Majority Leader on special orders at the hour of 10:04. Motion requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted, and the Senate will take up the bills on special orders consent calendar at the hour of 10:04. Special orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. Senator Coram.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee rise into the committee of the whole for consideration of special orders, second reading consent calendar.
The motion is for the Senate to resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of the special orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself in the committee of the whole for consideration of the special orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. Senator Coram will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. Will the clerk please read the titles on the special orders consent calendar? Court rule is relaxed.
House Bill 1348 by Representative Singer and Landgraf, Senators Gardner and Falls, concerning families involved in the child welfare system in connection therewith, prioritizing services and providing support for foster parents. House Bill 1307 by Representative Singer and Lean, Senators Gardner and Cook, concerning restricting the availability to children of products that contain dextromethorphan. House Bill 1344 by Representatives Weissman, Asides, and Senators Coram and Moreno, concerning relief from collateral consequences of criminal action. House Bill 1280 by Representative Melton and Senator Coram, concerning regulatory procedures related to the appointment of a court appointee for a regulated marijuana business in connection therewith, making an appropriation. House Bill 1174 by Representatives Arden Gray and Senator Priola, concerning the continuation of the Sunset Law, the Board of Mortgage Loan Originators in connection therewith, adopting the legislative recommendations of the Department of Regulatory Agencies and contained in the Department's Sunset Report. House Bill 1372 by Representatives Escar and Becker Jay and Senator Cavallis, concerning exemption of the Regional Center depreciation account in the Capital Construction Fund from the definition of cash fund for purposes of the requirements under the automatic cash fund funding mechanism for payments of future costs attributable to certain of the state's capital assets. House Bill 1371 by Representatives Escar and Becker Jay and Senators Cavallis and Baumgartner, concerning capital construction budget items in connection therewith, codifying the 3-year period. The capital construction budget items remain available and clarifying the deadlines for the submission of capital construction budget request amendments, and budget request amendments that are related to a request for a supplemental appropriation. House Bill 1374 by Representatives Hansen and Escar and Senators Cavallis and Baumgartner, concerning controlled maintenance needs of real property acquired through a lease purchase agreement. Senate Bill 248 by Senator Martinez Humanic and Representatives Lawrence and Gray, concerning the treatment of statutory provisions governing tax increment financing of revenues received by an urban renewal authority following certain voter-approved revenue increases. Senate Bill 247 by Senator Gardner, concerning the creation of a fund and pay for the continuation of certain benefits for dependents of certain local government public safety employees who die in a work-related death.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move all the bills listed on the special orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. House Bills 1348, 1307, 1344, 1280, 1174, 1372, 1371, 1374, along with the Finance Committee report, Senate Bill 248 and the Finance Committee report, and Senate Bill 247, along with its Finance Committee report.
You've heard the motion. Huh? Okay. Are there any discussions on the committee reports? Committee. Huh? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Committee reports are adopted. Any discussion on the bills? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bills listed on the consent report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion of the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion to rise to reports has approved.
It's like
Senate will come back to order. Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration under special orders consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee holdbacks lead reports that in consideration of the following tax bills being second read, that makes following recommendation on Senate Bill 248 as amended. Senate Bill 247 as amended passed second read order and gross place counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1348, House Bill 1307, House Bill 1344, House Bill 1280, House Bill 1174, House Bill 1372, House Bill 1371, House Bill 1374 as amended passed second read order revised place counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the report.
Motion for the body is the adoption of the report to the committee of the whole. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 248 is amended. Senate Bill 247 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1348, House Bill 1307, House Bill 1344, House Bill 1280, House Bill 1174, House Bill 1372, House Bill 1371, House Bill 1374 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered revised and placed on the counter for third reading and final passage.
So House Bill 1003 is up in State Affairs this afternoon, and that's supposed to be moved to the morning State Affairs Committee, so we need to wait for the committee report this afternoon. And it's like a few, sorry, I'm like upside down here, I guess what I'm saying. It's a few bills down. So I don't know if you wanted to have, I guess you can do this, now I said that after it comes out of State Affairs. Tomorrow we'll put it on the calendar so we get it. Assuming it passes State Affairs, they could. Yeah, and I put it, it's been in the calendar. Yep, we are.
So go ahead and keep 248 on. That's my point. If I could have read it, I could have had an opinion on it. So maybe just give us a little more time.
Google reminder.
Yeah, we do have announcements.
Announcements. Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Appropriations Committee, heads up, because we will have a meeting tomorrow. It will be at 9 a.m. Appropriations at 9 a.m. If you look at your calendar, you'll discover that the Senate is not scheduled to convene until 9:30. So at our regularly appointed place, we will be meeting. Now, I bet you'd like to know what bills we'll be considering. I'd like to know that too. And so we're still working on the on the list, and that will be announced from this microphone before the Senate recesses for the entire day. Adjourns, that is. So stay tuned, and we will tell you.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Would like to ask you to please help me join in welcoming a group from Aurora, from House District 41, Senate District 28, that are here coming to the Capitol today. They heard that there's going to be a big crowd tomorrow and Friday, so they decided to come today. So please join me in welcoming a group from Aurora. Thank you.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Health and Human Services Committee is meeting today at 10:40 a.m., 10:40 in 354.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues in Senate Finance, on adjournment tomorrow, please add one more bill possibly to your list. We have Senate Bill 260 that we're hearing in education. If it passes through, it will be on the calendar tomorrow in Finance on adjournment.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'll ask for your attention. We do have a tribute in support of Colorado Denim Day that I will go ahead and read, and then it's great to see so much denim in the room. If all of you can gather for a picture after we adjourn as well, or if you want to join me now, that would be wonderful. So the Colorado Senate convened in the second regular session of the 71st General Assembly hereby recognizes Colorado Denim Day. On Colorado Denim Day, April 25th, 2018, groups throughout Colorado are asked to allow their employees to pay $5 in exchange for wearing jeans on Denim Day. Funds donated directly support CCASA's advocacy work to ensure that survivors of sexual violence are supported. CCASA serves as a collective voice of sexual assault victims and service providers in public policy initiatives, education, training, and collaborative efforts. Colorado Denim Day demonstrates the power of communities coming together to support survivors and end sexual violence. On request of Senator Dominic Moreno, given this 25th day of April 2018, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, signed Kevin J. Grantham, President of the Senate. Colleagues, appreciate all of you that wore denim today in support of survivors of sexual assault. And if you haven't had a chance yet, there are collection boxes on either side of the Senate desk up here. Please make sure if you wore denim today that you make a donation to CCASA. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any further announcements? Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, add one more to your list. If it does pass for Finance tomorrow, Senate Bill 257.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I hope that you were able to find an article in your mailbox yesterday regarding the additional reports that have been released by another firm regarding the behavior of our senator from northwestern Colorado, in which there were more credible findings of sexual harassment in the workplace. So we now have information that was available but not available to us on the day that we debated the resolution. And in light of this new information that's available, I would like to ask whether it's possible to have a reconsideration of Senate Resolution 18003 concerning the expulsion of the senator from Hot Sulphur Springs for sexual harassment of more than one legislative employee, and would like to engage all of you in the potential for having that discussion yet again, or once again, encourage the senator from Hot Sulphur Springs to resign. Thank you.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Didn't think I would have to address this issue again, but I have to. Because, Mr. President, I'm drowning. I'm drowning in the muck and the mire as relates to workplace harassment, sexual harassment, and sexual misconduct. I'm losing confidence in the leadership's ability to seriously address sexual misconduct of members in this body. I believe that leadership begins with the journey of integrity. Leadership goes hand in hand with integrity. This weekend, at the tender age of my grandchildren of 9 and 11, I had to explain to them what sexual harassment meant. It shocked me that I had to have this conversation with them. But I had that talk with them because I need to give them the permission to use their voice to say no and to report that to their parents or report it to me if you're ever treated unfairly, if you're ever harmed. You need to report it and say something, because I don't think we need to be having my kids and your daughters and your wives suffer in silence. Enough is enough. Most importantly, Mr. President, I stand as a surrogate with all the women in this building who have filed serious complaints for sexual harassment and misconduct. These women have been victimized in the workplace. They filed a serious complaint. It was investigated not once, but twice. And still the leadership fails to believe the reports that have come forth. I believe that we've been tricked. I believe that we've been misled. I believe that we've been fooled. Because when we took that vote, we knew that there were additional complaints, but they were pending. And so this body did not have the comprehensive data that we now have. We were tricked. We now find out that not only did this lawmaker, this senator, hit a woman on her butt, he's also known as a boob grabber. And we're still going on with our business, not addressing our workplace. What is it going to take to lead in crisis? I read in the newspaper that the crisis is going to take place after we're done, when the session is over. Well, why? We have all the data that we need right now. Let's make a decision right now. When we had that debate, I was appalled because they blamed the victim. I heard one of the persons in leadership says, well, we have cameras. We have cameras everywhere. That couldn't have happened. Why are we not believing the women in these cases? We might have cameras, doesn't mean it didn't happen. Why are we not believing the victims in this case. Then we heard something like, I don't believe the reports. Well, you requested an outside independent consultant to investigate. They come back and they said that the claims are valid. You didn't believe that one, so you requested another one. And I'm understanding that there's a belief that it's much more professional, but yet we still don't have any action based on the validity of this report. We had another report. The report came over with a 200-page document that says that this workplace under this gold dome is toxic as it relates to workplace harassment and sexual discrimination. We have a problem. And we can't be who we are if we continue to do the same thing. We know the definition of insanity. We need to move in another direction, and what it's going to take leadership, it's going to take accountability, and it's doing the right thing for the women in this workplace. So, members, we now have more information showing that the senator from Hot Sulphur Spring sexually harassed staff. In light of these additional findings, I would like to ask for reconsideration of the Senate on Resolution 18-003 concerning the expulsion of the senator from Hot Sulphur Springs for sexual harassment of a legislative employee. Thank you, Mr. President, for this moment of privilege.
He's going to be on that. Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come down to ask for a moment of personal privilege because I've been thinking since the last few days since these further allegations and the further findings have come out. And originally, I remember back to that evening when we were debating the original resolution, and something that I was thinking of coming down and talking about, and I didn't, and I regret not coming down and talking about. But what I saw happening was a lot of he said, she said. And I think our conversation that evening really came down to that we had female victims who were not being believed, and we had males that were being believed. And I wanted to come down and point that out, and I didn't, and I regret not saying that evening. I'm taking this opportunity now to say that actually, perhaps my perception was wrong, and perhaps our perceptions in general were wrong about this he said, she said feeling that I had, because as I read through the news reports and I read through these findings, is that there were male employees that were making reports for their female coworkers that did not feel comfortable reporting themselves, but we had male employees, nonpartisan staff here in the Senate that were standing up for their female coworkers and making these reports. And due to the inaction of the Senate, it seems like the males who are reporting an uncomfortable working situation are not being believed either. So maybe it's not a he said, she said. Maybe it's just a general don't believe the people who are reporting. I don't know anymore, but I certainly support the previous two speakers in their call for bringing back a resolution or something that we can talk about now that we have 3 findings, 3 reports, all basically saying the same thing. We are the duly elected senators who are supposed to uphold the decorum, uphold the rules, uphold the senatorialness of this chamber and of this building. And I believe that the other evening when we were debating that resolution, we did not have all the facts before us that we should go ahead and bring this up again. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we do have committees meeting this afternoon, and there will be some bills coming out of those committees that might be heard in appropriations in the morning. I do want to, or tomorrow, I do want to point out one bill on page 7, House Bill 1003. That bill is in State Veterans and Military Affairs. If it should pass out of that committee, it will also be heard in the morning by the Committee on Legislative Counsel. Leg Council has a meeting tomorrow, and the Opioid Misuse Prevention Bill 1003 is one of the bills that Leg Council is scheduled to hear. So assuming it passes this afternoon in State Affairs, we'll read that committee report over later today. Therefore, we will, of course, leave the desk open. Just wanted to give you a heads up that that bill will also be considered in the morning by Leg Council. Mr. President, I move the Senate recess until 12 o'clock today, 12 p.m. noon today.
The motion is for the Senate to stand in recess till 12 p.m. today. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we'll stand in recess.